that just leaves us with one more top 25 game that we have not yet talked about here tonight. This game is going to be happening on Fox. It's at 8 o'clock. It's going to be out in Corvallis, Oregon. Drove by Corvallis, Oregon over the summer. It's a nice town. Shout out to those of you in the Oregon State community. Big time, well, not as big time, I would say, as Washington and Oregon. That's going to get a lot of attention within the conference. But then you also have Oregon State and UCLA. Both teams with one loss. Both teams are fighting for that opportunity to maybe be that dark horse to go to the college football playoff. This is basically an elimination game from that standpoint. Both teams also have one loss in conference play as well. That's where both their losses come from. And because it's best two teams, it's not split up by division, this is also going to be an elimination game from the conference standpoint as well. So we got that going on this Saturday night. Now, it is in Corvallis, Oregon, like I said. This is actually the first time since 2019 that these two teams have met. And this is the first time since 2015 that they're meeting specifically in Corvallis. The previous meeting happened in LA on UCLA's campus. Oregon State, in their own right, has played a tough schedule so far. They're coming off of, this is going to be their third ranked opponent that Oregon State has played in the last 4 weeks. They went on the road a few weeks ago against Washington State. They found a way to win at home against Utah. They do have that game against Cal, and that Cal game was a shootout. Now they're playing against UCLA, and then they'll have a little bit calmer of a schedule before they close out against Washington and Oregon. So we got that going for them. UCLA, on the other hand, UCLA also is going through a tough part of their schedule. We saw them against Washington State. They beat Washington State, something that Oregon State cannot say. However, Utah beat UCLA, but Utah was not able to beat Oregon State. So we have a couple of head-to-heads there. So at first glance, it seems like this game feels pretty even. It does feel a tad even. So we'll talk about the key matchup, and then we'll talk about some players to watch in this game before I give my prediction here. So, key matchup in this one, and something to really keep in mind, UCLA is ranked number 2 in the country in rush defense. I'm going to say that again, just in case that shocked you guys a little bit. They are number 2 in the entire country in rush defense. They're allowing just 64 yards a game. And they also only allowed 1 rushing touchdown the entire year, which I'm sure when you think of UCLA, you think of Chip Kelly, you don't think defense, right? You just don't. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But it's happening here there at UCLA. And they played some good teams too. They played a couple of good teams, particularly in Utah, particularly in Washington State. So it's a proven rush defense, I would say, through 2 weeks of the season. So big test because Damian Martinez, electric running back. Electric running back, has 1,600 yards rushing over the last 2 years. He's averaging 6 yards a carry. That is a team record, by the way. Also had a solid performance against Cal. Not a liquid or a gas, but a solid performance. Ran for 90 yards, ran for a touchdown. Can they get Damian Martinez going? Can they make it honest in terms of keeping it easy on the ground, right? Not necessarily like breaking like home run ball type of runs, but picking up like 4 to 5 yards consistently. If Oregon State can do that, DJU is going to have some more space to operate. So because UCLA can't focus on the passing game, and granted, we think DJU is a solid quarterback. He has thrown for 7 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in the first 3 games of Pac-12 conference action as of right now. So if Damon Martinez and DJU, if they can get at least make it honest with the running game, then that'll give DJU some time to operate. Because if Oregon State gets one-dimensional, that could become an issue. Other players to certainly watch out for. We got to talk about this true freshman quarterback, Dante Moore. He's growing right before our eyes in terms of how he's played throughout the season. Dante Moore just last week threw for 290 yards, and that's a career high for him in his young college career. He's matching his, actually it matches his career high. So he didn't break it, he matched it. Dante Moore been solid thus far this year. 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He hasn't been great. He's been okay though. But he has been able to get explosive plays through the air, even though maybe that completion percentage is not necessarily the previous. He's only completing 53% of his passes, which is not ideal, but he is a dynamic threat because when he does complete said passes, he's able to get big chunk plays out of it. 16 yards, a completion. That's third best in the entire country. And Oregon State got a pretty good defense in their own right. Aside from that 38-point performance against Washington State, their defense has overall held up extremely well. One of the better coached defensive units in the country. Dante Moore is going to have to step up in this one. And then likewise, going back to the Oregon State side in terms of an X factor, we already talked about DJU. We got to talk about Silas Bolden. He's a wide receiver for Oregon State. He's been a versatile force for the Beavers. In his game against Cal, he caught 3 passes for 34 yards, got a touchdown there too, also rushed for 11 yards. This is someone that plays a big threat in the return game. And, you know, when games are projected to be pretty close, that special teams does play a really big role at the end of the day. So can Silas Bolden be that X factor and maybe create a touchdown drive through special teams or through a, so to speak, create those big plays either through the air or on the ground? Because he's kind of a home run hitter. He's not one to go for singles and doubles, so to speak. So that's really what I'm looking for in this particular game. I'm excited about this game as well. We're going to have a lot of games happening at the same time. Last facts and figures before I go ahead and give my prediction. So this series actually does date back to 1930. So there's that. One last thing is Oregon State has 22 red zone conversions in 22 attempts this season. That's either getting a touchdown or a field goal. So they're extremely successful in getting points in the red zone. UCLA is one of the best in the nation in terms of red zone defense. They're allowing just 4 touchdowns and 3 field goals in the red zone. So we got that out of the way. Let's now talk about who I think is going to win this game at the end of the day. The model has Oregon State winning by 8, and then Vegas has it at a 3.5 points. I truly do think this game really could go in either direction. I do. But because this game is in Corvallis, we're going to pick Oregon State to win. Because a true freshman quarterback going on the road in that environment in Razor Stadium in Corvallis, Oregon, it is a very underrated environment. If you haven't seen an Oregon State game, which I know many of you haven't, I know you haven't done so, this is going to be a rocking environment. I think that's just a little too much for a true freshman quarterback to do. And because of that, we're going to side with Oregon State. Close, though. I think Oregon State wins this game. I can't say for certain if they cover, though. Go ahead.